Ladies and gentlemen, we now welcome to the stage the moderator for our closing panel, Vivianne Rodrigues, Executive Editor, Emerging Markets of Bloomberg, along with Roberto Campos Neto, Governor of Central Bank of Brazil, who will explore the success and impact of Pix, an innovative instant payments solution that has revolutionized the Brazilian economy, earning this year's Bravo Beacon of Innovation Award. Joining them are panelists Anali Duarte, Head of Global Transaction Services, Latin America of Bank of America, and João Vitor Menin, CEO of Banco Inter, and Wagner Ruiz, co-founder and board member of eBanks.
Thank you.
All right, so with further ado, can you hear me? I'm sure this is working.
I cannot.
Yeah?
No.
Ah. All right, so this is a
Consegue
fantastic
ouvir ela?
I don't know. Is it up?
Hello?
No?
Now,
It's working.
now I think it's working.
Is it working now? Mic check.
Testing.
Can you hear me? No?
Essa é minha, né?
1 second. I think. Is it up now? Okay. I think now, finally. All right. Okay. So just to up the suspense of the of the program, this is a fantastic group. I mean, of people who are absolutely committed to the, revolution of. Let's try the mic here. How about now? Better.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'll keep this in mind. Yeah. And we'll start with no introductions here to Brazil's central bank governor, who is the person who really took to heart to spearhead this. It's truly a revolution when it comes to payments in Brazil, and I know he has a bit of a, introductory presentation that will set up the debate for us.
Okay. Should I start? Yeah?
Yes, please.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. I want to thank all my partners here in the panel. So the idea is to talk a little bit about the evolution of the digital agenda that we have in Brazil, because people focus a lot on Pix, but Pix is part of it. So when we thought on how to make financial intermediation more efficient in a digital way using technology, there were a couple of blocks that we needed to put together. So the first thing is, we thought we need first to understand what's actually happening. And what was clearly happening was a movement in which you had more and more data available. The ability to produce data, to store data, to select data, and to analyze data had improved a lot. Also, the computing power had improved a lot. We started to see that there was this attempt to build a vertical chain in terms of getting data. So we would look at, for example, WhatsApp wanted to do payment in Brazil. Google wanted to do chat in India. And so we started to realize that the big companies were running after building this vertical integration of data. And basically, if you think about, if you have the text, if you have the content, and if you have payment, basically thinking about the chain of a sale of a product, you would have the advertisement, you would have the sales, you would have the payment, and probably you know what the client thinks about the product, because you can analyze through the texting, right? So that is very powerful. So one of the things that when we look into that, one of the things that we realize is we needed to make sure that whatever happens in this digital space, it happens in a competitive way. So this is how we started to think about the agenda. Then we look at what people were doing, especially the young people. They were using different systems. And we actually look at surveys. And what people wanted is a system of payment that was cheap, fast, secure, transparent, and open. That's what people wanted. So we thought, okay, how can we design something to actually improve the financial intermediation? So the first idea is we need a rail. And the rail needs to be a system that has massive adoption, because we're going to use this rail for the other blocks of the financial innovation that we want to promote. It was very easy to start with payments, because payments is something that everybody uses. And we thought if we have a payment system and we make sure that the bigger banks, at least the 4 or 5 big banks, they adopt, there will be some momentum going into it. So the first idea is, let's do a payment system. So then Pix came up. We looked at different places, like UPI in India and some of the systems in Scandinavia. And there was one thing that we need to do it that had not been done in the way that we wanted to do it, which is we want a system to be programmable, which in the case of India is not, and we want it to be scalable. So you wanted to scale that. So you had to have the programmability, but you know that if you put too much programmability, then when you scale too much, it would be a problem. That was our understanding at the time. So we designed Pix. We were very much surprised on what happened with Pix, because we just had last week 170 million transactions in one day. That's not very far from 1 transaction per person per day. So that's a lot. I mean, that's like 4 or 5 times more than India, that has the system much longer than we have. We see that it's now more popular than all the other means of payments. And we also see that it generated inclusion. So we have 70 million people that are actually included somewhat in the financial system because of Pix. Also, we had more bank accounts, so you bunkerize people. So we have around 9 million bank accounts that are open just because of Pix. There is a way of seeing that. I'm not going to get into the details here. And so kind of the first objective was achieved. So we have a system that has wide use, and it's a rail that we can actually work on this rail with other things. So this is the first block. The second block is, okay, now I have a rail, and it's going to connect everything, and it makes sure that the barrier of entry in the financial system is the same, because Pix is the same for every bank. If you're a big bank, small bank, when the client enters in your platform to do Pix, it's the same experience. So, but we want to take that to another level, which is we want to have a system in which you can have comparability and portability in real time. So then comes the open finance. So Brazil is designing the widest open finance out there. We already had 39 billion calls of APIs, which means people importing data. So today in Brazil, if you go into the app, your app in your bank, and you wanted to download data from other bank, you can already do that. And you can compare. It's not very organized yet because we don't have the aggregators. I'll talk about that in the end. And the data sometimes is not very homogeneous, so we are working on improving that. But we already had close to 40 billion. So the second block is, okay, so now I have the common rail, and I have this new layer that I can put on the top of it that generates competition and openness. So everybody can see the data. You probably will start getting information from the bank that you could do a better product at a different rate in other bank. Pretty soon you're going to be able to consume a product and compare rates for financing real time. So when you have the aggregators. Some companies are working on that. So those are 2 blocks. But then we thought, okay, we need this to be international. And here is a different dimension, which is how can I bring efficiency in the cross-border payments? One thing that I've been in BIS for a long time now, and every year there is this talk about, let's do cross payments, and we need to improve that and improve, and it's been very slow. So I think one of the things that we central bankers collectively have kind of failed is to design a cross payment system that's very efficient. Not too long ago, if I asked you what is the easiest way to transfer $10 million from Brazil to London, and I put one of the options like multiple choice, a plane, that would be the right choice, right? It's true. So I'm sure SWIFT is improving and we have new technology. But today I see a lot of people talking about common currencies and which currency is going to prevail, and are we going to a de-dollarization? And when I look at the technology and the solutions that technology can offer, I think this debate is very outdated. Because if every country has a digital currency and we are able to connect those currencies digitally in a fast and secure way, you actually have achieved the goal of having a common currency without actually having to sacrifice your monetary policy or freedom internally. So I think the days of discussing common area and this with the digital payments and the ability to connect those, I think it's over. By the way, from a year and a half ago, 2 years ago to now, we have now these systems that we actually can connect centralized systems to DLT systems just as fast as DLT to DLT. So the idea that crypto is always going to be better than a system that connects CBDC is no longer true. So this is the third block. And then the fourth block of the plan, so a rail, then the open finance, which opens the data, then internationalization part, and then the last one is the tokenization. So we want to have these three blocks, but we want to take a step further. So we want to make sure that people start to see banks, not in an account way, but in a token way. So we wanted to have our digital currency. There was a lot of debates within central banks on how to do digital currency. I never liked any of the ideas, to be honest with you, because there is always this moment in the middle of the discussion in which you would stall, because the more adoption the CBDC had, the more you would impair the ability of the banks to do credit. So I always thought that was a problem. I remember having endless conversations. People say we're going to do a limited amount that people can have. But if a digital currency works well and you put a limited amount, who guarantees you that you're not going to have arbitrage between the physical and the digital? So things like that. And then someone gave idea to put negative interest on the digital currency if there was an arbitrage, which is kind of a difficult idea to do, because imagine recalibrating rates every day to make sure the demand equals supply. So at the end, for me, we, in the middle of one of those debates, what came out is that we don't need to go into all this complicated stuff, because we can do a digital currency in a deposit format. So our digital currency in Brazil is just a token issued out of a deposit. So a bank blocks a deposit and issues a token on it. What's the advantage of that? Well, first, it's much simple and cheaper. Second, if you think about regulation, you don't need to do almost anything, because you already have regulation for deposits. So this is just a digital deposit. So it inherits the regulation that you already have in place. Third part, which is very important. Once you issue the concept of tokenization within the balance sheet of the banks, we have the thinking that the banks will be much more efficient. They will be much more efficient in securitization, in overlooking risks, in doing asset management, and in the back office. So we started to look at what are the results of DLT models inside normal functions of the bank, and what we realized that it becomes much more efficient. So that's a reason. And then one last part, which I think people overlook a lot, is that our digital currency called Drex, and I've heard that some Jewish people told me that Drex is not a good name, depending on, but it's not Drek, it's Drex. And it was too late to change the name. And by the way, when we did pick, someone from another country said that PIX meant something bad in their language too. So I started to realize that it always means bad.
Always something.
Yeah, there's always something. But so one of the things that people are not, in general, not seeing in Drex is Drex is not only for payments, for digital payments. I think it improves also the contract and the registration part. So today, if you want to buy real estate in the US, your life is very hard. You have to have a escrow account. You have to have a lawyer on one side, a lawyer on the other side. There is a lack of transparency, and it's very slow, and it costs a lot. So if you have a system that basically you have a smart contract that is designed to do a payment of a real estate, and it meets with the encrypted code, which is the money that's actually being designed for that transaction, and it clicks, it generates a contract and a registration. And you don't need notary's office. In Brazil, it's called cartório, and it's very expensive. All you need to do is a printer, then to have your contract, okay? So it improves a lot this process of contract and registration. And that's very, very, very important. But there is one problem in the DLT space for digital currency that hasn't been solved yet. Not for us, not for anybody. So when you look at the CBDCs out there, they are not actually full DLTs. They are hybrid, which means that you have the DLT part inside the central bank, but then you have centralized for outside. And the question is, why is it that you haven't solved this problem? Well, because DLT platforms were made by people that wanted openness, so everybody can see what everybody else is doing. So the question is, how can you have a DLT platform so that you have the benefit of the nodes producing the registration and the contract without affecting the privacy issue. So this is the most challenging part. Nobody has solved this problem yet. I think we are very close to doing so. There is one other company in the US that's very close to doing so too. There are many different ways of doing it. I won't get into that because it's very technical, but you have the token shield, which you blur different tokens and then you only choose one. There is a 2-layer system. There's many ways of doing it. So basically, we have these 4 blocks. We have PIX, we have open finance, internationalization, and the DREX. And now we think about what comes next. And to finish, because I think I already talked too much, what comes next is how can you use that all together to make sure that you enhance financial education and the ability of the people to actually do better. And I think the part that needs to come after that is artificial intelligence. So when you have the integrator, which integrates all the data from your financial life, and then you have a way of choosing which account you want to use, which product you want to consume, if we put artificial intelligence on that to make sure that it gives you the recommendations and the steps so that you're actually producing the right financial products at a lower cost with more transparency and more security, I think that's where we want to go. So to sum up everything, we designed the rail, then the competitivity, then the internationalization, then the tokenization, and then now we think, how can we use AI to enhance all of that? So this is pretty much the plan that we designed. It was somewhat of a 4-year plan. We are now in the phase of testing pilots for the DREX, the digital currency, and we hope to have everything ready in 1.5 years.
So this set the stage for our conversation, and it's a lot to unpack here. And before I bring Annalie, João, and Wagner, I mean, I just wanted to get back to one, I would say even in an original point here. It's a bit uncommon that a central bank and a central banker taking a project of this magnitude, people tend to think, hey, monetary policy, regulation, but this is really veering into opening the banking system, deep into technology. What prompted you and what prompted the Central Bank of Brazil to really take it to heart, this revolution, and actually really spearhead it and work so closely with the industry and the banks and also tech companies and create a whole ecosystem in Brazil that made PIX so successful in such a short period of time?
I think at some point in time I had some meetings in California, close to Palo Alto, with a lot of people from technology companies. And one of the things that I always said would be very satisfying to do is if we can use technology to make sure that we solve the bigger problems that we have out there and enhance the life or the service for people. And when I started in the central bank, I always had the belief that technology is the most democratizing instrument that there exists out there. You can do better sales, you can do aggregation, you can do better health systems, and so on and so forth. So when we started to talk about and we designed the system, started designing the system of the future, I started to put the things together that, perhaps one of the things that a central bank should do is understand more about technology. And I hope, probably it's going to happen, that the next central banker that's going to come after me will know more technology than me, and the one that's going to come after him will know more, because I think that we are going into a phase in which you're going to have more and more technology in financial intermediation.
This brings me, when we had a conversation, Annalie, you told me that was a particular moment at Bank of America when you were discussing PIX and discussing the situation in Brazil, that it became clear to you that this was not a banking issue, it was a technology issue. Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit more about how you convinced at that time, the board and senior managers who were not so much, were not buying into the idea so much.
Yeah, I would say that technology is always a challenge for us. At the same time, it's a huge opportunity ahead of us. But of course, when we deal with technology, and I think that the beauty of PIX was because central bank could, bring the ability for us in promoting those discussions, building this backbone in terms of innovation, where we could add the services. But of course, it's very hard for the companies, for the entire industry, to fight for technology budget. And it is not only technology, it's people, because then you need to have these expenses on people prepared for this technology. Technology, of course, will help, but then you have not only for the banks, but also for the companies. as a very challenging way to fight for that. But the way we put it, because it was very strategic for us, I think that the beauty of this project is because central bank could include in this conversation in the whole industry. So I would say banks, fintechs, the digital banks that helped us, to have this financial inclusion, but also helped us to bring this as a strategic and powerful project inside the bank and inside the whole market and the whole industry. So it was easy for us because you are out or you are late, you're going to lose the momentum. So we need to plug, we need to be together, considering that it's very strategic for the company to support other companies. So the bank to support multinationals, to support the local companies there, we should be part of it. So helped us also to push for this agenda in terms of innovation.
And then obviously João and Wagner are two people who were very early on, especially both on the technology. But João, you want something that Campos Neto here mentioned, that is the democratization of that you were always very interested in making the Brazilian financial system, now even not just the Brazilian financial system, but democratizing it, and that the future for that for you would be obviously connected to instant payments, just get your telephone even if you don't have a bank account and just make payments and have a bank on your pockets. Tell us a little bit how was your journey with Pix early on and where it is today?
Okay, so first of all, I don't know if you are aware of that, but we, first, I agree that what you said, it's not only about Pix. So the central bank also helped Banco Inter. We were the first to migrate 100% to the cloud. So it was something that the central bank worked together with our partner at the time, AWS. So because of that, today we have 100% of our data in the cloud, so you can crunch the data and use the AI tool. So this is one thing that you mentioned. And also, to democratize, also the central bank worked together for our team to make a change on the regulation that allowed the clients to open their checking accounts through the app. It was not allowed before. Mm-hmm. You used to have the brains and the guy at the counter to look at the documents. And so besides of Pix, we had the cloud thing and also the way you are onboarding the system that helped to propel millions of clients. And we were, to be honest, ahead of that with the help of the central bank and with the help of our technology team. Which, by the way, our CTO happens to be here, Guilherme, and also the guys from AWS that helped us at the time. But, and then we realized that we could, without a huge footprint in Brazil, to bring a lot of clients, and of course, with a very good value proposition, then they were able to word of the mouth to promote how easy it was to change from another bank to a new bank, to a digital bank like ourselves. And this is what happened to I would say that we're a poster boy for Pix, Roberto, because, and then people say, oh, I can do a Pix, I can open my account online, and then more Brazilians were willing to open their bank accounts. And not only that, but it was easy, but also the cost to serve and the cost to transact was getting smaller, because sometimes we tend to blame an individual because, oh, you don't have a bank account or not doing things with the bank or just using cash, but it's not because they don't want, because they don't know about technology. Sometimes it's expensive for them to do so. So when you combine the initiative of the banks plus the regulator, you build this ecosystem for bankerizing people in Brazil. And the thing I was going to mention, Roberto, we had our own Pix at Inter. It was called Interpag, a QR payment. But the problem, it was a closed loop, only for our clients. So when we saw the Pix that was going to integrate all the banks, it was a huge opportunity for us to embrace that technology. So it came on the right time for us. And for sure, today we have 30 million clients in Brazil. We have other digital banks with millions and millions of clients. And at the end of the day, I would say that the clients, the customer, the families, the business accounts, they are the ones that are getting the most benefit of it. So, and with this bankerization, we reduce the fees, but also the debt service as well, because having more data, we can underwrite better, so less delinquency. So it's a win-win situation for the regulator, for the monetary policy, for the banks, and for the individual. So generate a lot of value for a country with this type of combination, the regulator, the banks. And so it was really amazing what happened, and we're very proud to be.
But that's obviously a key of the success here. Is the theme is that the partnership with the regulator, with the industry, with the banks, and actually a pretty fast rate of adoption. I mean, interesting that the population adopted very, very quickly. And I know, for example, that the issue also of open banking and the interface of that is one very close to everything that Wagner does with e-banks right now. So flipping the discussion a little bit, I mean, how we transport the experience and the success of I would call Brazil model for the purposes of this debate, this Brazil model into new markets, which I know everybody here is interested in bringing this to the United States, bringing this to, already did to Latin America, and even like some of you are working closely with Africa and other portions of Southeast Asia.
It's very funny because it's exactly what we are trying to do with the banks, and hopefully we will do that with the support of the central bank and the other central banks, because I was just about to say a cool thing about e-banks and PIX, because we are in love with PIX in Brazil. This is the truth. The adoption is amazing. Some numbers that I think is important to say, even the banking side, 39% of the people had bank accounts prior to PIX. Now we are talking about 70%, 70-something. We are talking about 70% of adoption. UPI in India, we are talking about 30 yet. So it was a huge success, and everything changed. And it's good to see the government saying, because it's not just PIX, it's a big picture. Even because I think started earlier on the regulation of the card schemes and the payment systems in 2012. Because without that, nothing would be possible as well. So it's a huge, it's a revolution, but it's not a revolution from 1 year. It's 10, 12 years from work and everybody working together. It's funny also to see people, how the central bank is discussing with the market in all the matters, getting knowledge about technology and other things. And now what we hope is to see that on the cross-border side, because our business is cross-border. So when I see PIX in Brazil and I see like Zelle in the US, I think how can we connect PIX to Zelle and receiving Citibank here from Banco do Brasil in São Paulo. So I think this is the next step. Of course, they have conversations between the regulators to do that. But also we can see the private initiative doing something similar. In our case, what we do is local processing, collect the money and send abroad. Of course, not still using the SWIFT and the rails that we have today. But when you think about tokenization and how you can do that in a fast and cheap way, it's amazing. So I think this is the next level that we can expect for instant payments. And it's not only in Brazil. So you have PIX in Brazil, you have the SPAY in Mexico, you have the SPE in Colombia, you have the UPI in India, other payment methods in Southeast Asia. So everything can be connected in real time. It's a challenge, was a challenge in Brazil, I believe, to deal. And the governor said the adoption, the 5 big banks being there was important. We know that in the US, for instance, is a little bit different because of the regulations, the local feds, the state feds. So it's tougher, but I believe this is the way. Even in Colombia started with SPE, but SPE was from the banks as well. So like we had in the past Boleto Bancário and the FEBRABAN with the compensation chamber. So started this way. But I believe the regulator is a very important figure in how to put the players and level the playing field. This is makes the difference to achieve this kind of success. And I can see in many countries, we are in 29 countries nowadays, all the countries, they have some kind of conversation about that. So I think it's a way, we need to put everybody together in the same table and try to do that, because this will be the next step of the payments.
So before we get to how do we take this, what's the future of PIX, right? I mean, just want to get back to one area where some of you have pointed to me that still could see more of an implementation. And then we talked a lot about this, is that it's business to business, right? I mean, not just, while people are very nimble, right? I mean, if you give a telephone to a teenager and he will bank to ways that not a lot of people would understand. But companies are still fairly resistant, or at least that's one area where more could be done to really foster intra-company payments. So tell us a little bit about Bank of America experience with that.
I'd say that we started with e-commerce that was like pushing this agenda like towards innovation and was putting a lot of pressure. But when we go to B2B, there is a room also, to improve those transactions there. Because if you take a look at the volumes in terms of transactions, that is 3% only in terms of number of transactions, so it's low. So there is a room also to grow. Of course, there is a challenge for the companies also to build that. Because imagine, the financial area sometimes is struggling because it's not the core business. So when they are fighting, they are competing internally with the tech budget for their production or buying machines, not for their ERP, to change the ways of receiving or sending payments. So that is a challenge for most of the companies, but it's still a room, mainly now with the FX new regulation that is going to open the market. So we need to be together with the companies, but again, I think it's going to be a room for development in terms of the companies that can start doing this. They are not resistant. I would say they are already talking to all of us, the fintechs, the digital banks, with the banks. But for them, it's challenging, the way it was for us in the past. But I think that the beauty of this is because, central bank could promote this conversation among us. That's the beauty of this panel, that you have, a digital bank, a fintech, together discussing the client experience. When we talk to Open Finance, we are still part of this forum that we are part of, discussing the client experience for corporate companies, not only for personals, which is different, right? So when we talk about corporations and they have their own challenges, and we need to give a solution that is also good for corporate, not only good for individuals. So I think it's an incredible adoption, and the way that the corporation are seeing this is a huge opportunity for all of them, all the markets. But if you call the utilities that is already part of it and taking the benefit of being part of PIX. So when I think when Roberto mentioned about not creating PIX as a method of payment and creating the rail for those backbone in terms of innovation, and also we can be part of it. So the companies they're going to be part of it. I think it's part of the evolution agenda that Roberto mentioned.
So is this the type of suite, let's say a suite that something like interbank and e-banks could offer to companies? Well, look, if you don't have it's difficult for, your business is not to create, technology or a payment system that allows that, but we have a customized solution for you. So you think that's something that could either Wagner or João address how, if that's an area of very specific growth that people don't talk too much about?
Yes, so first of all, on top of our clients, our clientele, we have roughly 10% of the clients that they are business accounts. So they are already using the easy to use, easy to download procedure on the onboarding, as I mentioned before. And they are already using Pixel also to make payments. But I would say that the individuals, they had a pain point, the cost to serve, how was it hard to get a bank account. I would say that the corporation, they have other pain points, such as the cost to do a transaction. So we have all the network card scheme, which is expensive, fraud. And what we realized, the way we were trying to connect these two different words, what we did at Inter, and it was something unique in Brazil at the time, we launched Intershop. So we were able to bring the inventory of the big guys on the retail side, put inside our app. So our clients through Pix could choose a product, make a payment, so have no fraud, have a very efficient transaction cost, and you can also advance the installments for this retailer in a very good discount rate because you have deposits. So when you combine these two things, so the pain points of the clients, of the individuals, and the pain points of the corporate clients, the ones that are on the retail or selling goods and service, then you get the best use of the technology. So you are improving, so it's cheaper for everyone, so it's a win-win situation. And when you have a win-win situation, you generate value to the society. So that's what we did at Inter to get the best use of data, technology, onboarding, PIX, a common rail to help both the individuals and the merchants and the corporate clients as well. So.
If we start, sorry, Wagner.
No, in the B2B side, it's working already because a fun fact, in Brazil, the companies are paying through PIX as well, using the same rail. So we had a huge payment, I don't know, 1.2 billion reais through using the rail. So it was funny to see everybody's paying through that.
By phone. 1.2 billion reais.
How much?
You said 1.2 billion reais?
One
That's
point
right, yeah,
two.
1.2 billion.
Yeah.
You authorize that?
Of the transaction.
They had the funds, it's instant, it's online, the funds is there, so they need to do the payments, and the confirmation is online. So it's amazing, the companies are doing, and the DREX, this CBDC can change for corporates how they do international business as well, because still we are talking about payments. I'm from payments, I like the consumer, but in the end of the day, try to pay $1 million to your seller in China or whatever in country. You need the bank. It's tricky, complicated. So even this DREX and how to tokenize, to do the token for everything can change how companies will do business. I'm not sure about us in the middle, but we will adjust ourselves on that and try to help as well. But we'll change everything, can change. It's just a matter to discuss with all the regulators, I think.
So is that where we go from here? I mean, is that what's on the central bank agenda for that? When you think, look, I mean, I do really would like to take where we are one step forward. You mentioned in the start of the conversation, you know, tokenization, digital currencies. I wonder if security is an issue here, how to really integrate, you know, is it the future of banking and open banking? I mean, it's a lot, but I wonder what you, in this area specifically, what are you looking at?
So I guess the question is the things that I see being done in the future. I would probably say that there are more things that I haven't been able to do, that we haven't been able to do, than things that we have done. So I would probably take an hour of an answer to tell you everything that we thought that we should have done, and we were not able to do it as of now. So for example, I think we should have offline wallets. So people would transfer to an offline, small amounts of money, and they could use that without having the signal. But the banks have not, contrary to what I expected, banks have not developed that. We need to do PIX in a less number of clicks than today. Today you need to use your face, then do 3 or 4 clicks. We need to have digital wallets. So there are 2 companies that are working on that for us. It's basically everything that you do, once you integrate all your financial data, all the transaction, everything that you do is going to be stored in a digital wallet. And then you're going to be able to monetize your digital wallet by tokenizing the data in exchange for DREX. So that's something that we wanted to do also. We wanted to have more solutions on the cross-border, and we want to add a lot more features on PIX. So the idea is PIX is programmable. So the opportunities are endless. You can do a lot of things when you have a programmable system. So the programmability of money will allow you to do things like automatic payment, programmed payment, exchange against DVP, and so on and so forth. I think that the credit card of the future is just going to be programmable money. You're not going to have a card anymore. You're not going to be paying the big credit card companies the amount of money that you pay today, because you're going to be able to do that in a much easier and faster way. I would say that in Brazil, I think the credit card environment will change a lot in the next 3 to 4 years. I guess I can go on and on, but there's so many things that we haven't done that that's easier to talk about that. But one thing that I see the system going, and I think that's not, it's irreversible, it's very difficult to reverse, is that I think we are going to a more tokenized system. So people will try to find a digital representation of assets and exchange into a platform that is more transparent, that's safer, that's faster, and you can actually manage it better with the visibility. You can use the collateral better. So I think that is something that I don't think we'll go back from that. And for the countries that have not been able to have systems that are programmable and digital, they're going to lag behind a lot once these things take place. And I think it's already happening.
Does anyone does right now? Is there any experience that you look? I mean, I think Brazil has a lot to do. As we said, the experience of Brazil is very successful. But is there, and this goes to anyone in the panel, is that, I mean, India obviously has been a very active. I mean, Africa is one area where everybody does, really bypass the banking system to a certain degree. But
I think we learn from each other a lot in the central banking community. I think the Indian system was created with a different purpose. They wanted to have a digital ID. So they also wanted to have a dimension to provide better public services for people. We didn't have that dimension in PIX. That was not one of the goals of designing it. So that's probably explains why it's a little bit different. Then you go to the Scandinavian systems, and you have systems that are actually more advanced, but they are not as scalable as we wanted to. And then you look at some of the systems in Asia and the connections that are developing, and you have the Nexus project, which connects Singapore to India. I looked at last week at 2 weeks of a batch of 2 weeks of data from payment. This is very, very efficient, so it's happening. So I think we kind of learn from each other. There is no system that's better. It just depends on your reality. But I think that some of the countries that have too many regulators and too much bureaucracy on the decision making from creating this public good, which is a good, they will probably lag behind more and more.
this is probably here, right? I mean, like every city, every state, 12 Fed districts. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a very difficult environment to operate. So how to overcome these type of challenges?
Oh, Vivianne, just stepping back a little bit, what Roberto mentioned about the tokenization. We're talking here on this panel for payments, transactions, and the fees associated, but also one of the biggest burden for the families and individuals is the debt service. And it's amazing because a few years ago, one of the investors of Intel was in Brazil and said, oh, I'm amazed how rich the Brazilian families are. And he asked, why? They have so much equity on their homes, on their house. And today, if you want to get a home equity because you have a real asset that it's annoying. It's like a 30, 45 days to get a loan on top of that, right, Roberto? Although we are improving the home equity product in Brazil. But imagine if you could get a loan against your house, your home, whatever asset you have, investment, pension plan. So this will help to do things fast and to reduce a lot the debt service, not only in Brazil, but all over the world. So
but this would mean people having access to all your financial data.
Yes.
Right? I mean, so all the land, the potential
all your
lenders.
assets that you have. It might be financial assets, non-financial assets. So I agree that PIX was the starting point, but putting all of this in a tokenized with a good access in your smartphone, so you'll be able to, within, 5 seconds, like you do a PIX, you could borrow a good money with a good debt service on your house. So this could bring a lot of richness to the countries and to the society. So.
I think João made a very, very important comment. One of the dimensions that we tried to push very hard was to create the reverse home equity, and we simplified the rules. And the point that he made is very important because there is a concept that people use that's called average equity ownership, which basically means how much on a society level, how much of people have paid of their own houses. So US system at some point in time before 2008 was very leveraged. So this number was around 27, 28%. Most countries in Europe are between 50 and 60. Brazil was 96 and now I think it's 91. So the leverage in the real estate system is very low, which means that it's probably suboptimal, which means that people could be using their assets to take loans at a cheaper rate, but they're not. And I think the point that he made is very important because one of the brainstorms that we did once was how can we put more money in the economy without generating fiscal? And the ability to extract equity from your house in terms of loans at cheaper rate is probably one of the good things, that the very important things that we can do. And we're working on that, but like João said, it's still, the bureaucracy is still very big.
I mean, because security comes to the forefront, and this is, I would have a question for Annalie or Wagner. I mean, security, fraud, at the moment that you open your financial data to everybody in the world, I mean, how do you protect that data? And I think we had the general speaking earlier here about security issues at a global scale, but this is very core to, identity fraud, for example, is something that people really worried about. So I suspect this is a challenge to an even faster and more integrated, adoption of digitalization of payments. I mean,
And I would say
how
that
to address it,
It has always been, like since, 80s when we standardized the collection. So the fraud was around that, so the discussion was in the past as well. Of course, now it's completely different scenario, and then we need to face that with the discussion on cybersecurity. We heard the whole day this morning, it is on the top of the CFO head, so we need to work on that. But I would say that the benefit of dealing with fraud and those discussions is also the opportunity, as Roberto mentioned, to exchange the way we are doing things today, and also open the market for tax payments, for example. The way it used to be, like manually, and then we're gonna be part of this rail using QR code, so it's gonna bring a very good benefit trying to avoid fraud. So I think it's not only on the security, cybersecurity, it's the way we used to do manually, and then we are migrating to digital. So it's still ongoing. I think it's part of central bank agenda. It's part of our investment to be part of this tax investment. Like I'm just mentioning tax payment, but just one piece of the whole agenda that is gonna change the market. So the security in terms of fraud is not only in terms of cybersecurity, I would say, but reinforcing that we are still migrating from manual to digital, not only for individuals when we talk about B2B.
In the end, I believe it's technology. So
Yeah.
like this, tokenization can solve part of the problems. Of course, we need to have the regulators, we need to have the laws, and it's something that is developing year over year. So if you, I love history of payments. So if you go to the Czech books in the 60s, we had our risks. Then the credit cards was a nightmare, even in the US, the fraud on the online commerce as well. So we are improving, and I think we have the ways to solve that with technology. And about your other questions about US and other countries where you don't have a centralized decision making like here, the private initiative will solve it. So once again, talking about the history of payments. In 2000, PayPal with a digital account, peer-to-peer transactions. Now you have Zelle doing that, but you need adoption, doing like Pix, like we do, but they had to convince the big banks. Now the big banks have Zelle. Now they need to convince the users. So it's a little bit harder, tough, but I believe all this kind of solutions will come here as well, mostly through the private initiative and all the banks and all the fintechs. They are doing that since 2000. So I think this is the way. And the security of the data is the problem that we need to solve, but I believe in technology to solve that.
One important point is that what you're trying to optimize is you wanted to do as much transaction as you can using data that is as little or as less sensitive as you can. So in Pix, for example, you have the key and you have your name, and that's all you need. And the key usually is a phone number or your ID number. So I remember one day that we had this big leak of data, and I get killed by the press. And I had to talk with one of the reporters, and she said, "That's a horrible thing that happened. You had leaking data of people." And I asked her, "But you know what is the data that actually leaked?" And she said, "No, but it's horrible." And I said, "Okay, the data that is leaked was the name, the phone number, and in some cases the name, and the digital number, the ID number." And I said, "By the way, do you have a checkbook in your wallet?" And she said, "No." I said, "By the way, I have one here." And I look, and the checkbooks from the past had
all
your
the
name,
Everything, your address.
your address, your name, your address, your phone number, and your ID. And you just give, for people without even asking. So again, that puts things into perspective a little bit. But what we want to do is to create a system where it moves with data that is, if possible, as less sensitive as you can.
So if we were to try to wrap it up, we're beginning to run out of time. I mean, is this really, I mean, where do we go here in terms of banking? I mean, we're seeing the beginning of, say, the end of banking as we know it. I mean, we're used to having and going to an agency and to dealing with that and to having managers. I mean, also there's a lot of fee structure built into banking, some of these transferences in payments. So a lot of banks still rely on this as part of their business model. I mean, but is this 5 years from now or 10 years from now, would we have a complete different landscape?
For me?
Anyone who ventures, who's bold enough to answer, you know, to predict the future here? Yeah.
Well, it's very hard to predict the future because when we started Pix, it had 4 clicks plus the recognition, the facial recognition. I thought that would be more for bigger tickets than for smaller. And what happened was exactly the opposite. So I was very wrong on that. The average ticket started very little and actually increased a lot. As he said, we had a billion reais transaction the other day. So it's hard to predict, but I would probably predict that you would fight a lot for the channel because the data is open, the products are comparable, and you have portability, then the channel becomes very important. So if I build an aggregator or a channel in which people will go through my channel to do all his financial transactions, that channel has an advantage. So it's a bit like Google and Yahoo. So if people will choose one aggregator or one way of getting to as a portal or like a gateway to his financial world, that would have a lot of value. So I think today the financial companies don't fight for channels because everyone has their own channel. And I think that's about to end. I think people fight for channels, and I think everything is going to be more integrated, yeah.
Looking forward to it. I really want to take the panel. I mean, I've learned a lot with all of you. I genuinely did. So Wagner, João, Annalie, and obviously Roberto, thanks so much. And,
Thank you.
I have one final question for you. I promised I wouldn't ask about interest rates, and I won't. But here's a question. Can I use Pix? I asked someone, if you have a question for the central banker, and they asked, can I pay the tickets to Messi? It's $800 using Pix, or do I need to use Zelle?
Someone just actually had it.
I think Marcelo, Claudia,
yeah, someone just
mentioned.
approached me, said that there is a system built in the US in which you can use Pix and then you convert and get the money, get the financial transaction on the next day. Someone that was here that hand out this.
It was probably the same person.
Yeah, so I think I've heard the other day that if you go to Orlando on the outlets, in Orlando you can already use Pix. If you go to Uruguay, you can use Pix. If you go to Chile, you can use Pix. Argentina, the other day, even the guys from the central bank were actually calling me saying too many people are using Pix, so is there anything we can do? So I think it's already happening, and I think you're going to connect different systems. I just wanted to connect the systems faster. I mean, that's probably something that we haven't been able to do. There is a project called Fusser, which is a project from the BIS, which is a container solution that's going to be very cheap for everybody to connect their systems in there. And we're working on that right now.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.